Everyone. So my talk is, how did I get here? I'm one of these people who was a career changer into the industry, and thought, you know what, it can be done. People coming in, said I'd talk a little bit about it and a bit more on who am I? Well, I'm Gerard. Just part to me is Gerard. It's an easier way to go. I am a former insurance fraud investigator. That was my life before moving into cybersecurity. Since then, I've been a SOC analyst. I've been a SOC engineer and an MSSP. And at the moment, I am a cybersecurity engineer for National Gas and Transmission, which is essentially a split between National Grid for the electricity and gas. They're being split by Ofgem, so they needed people in to kind of build things through for National Gas. So that's my day-to-day life now. I'm also a committee member for the Hack Thursday events in Glasgow for cybersecurity that have recently started. I'm a UK chapter lead for CSIRT Global, which, as you see from the logo, is powered by Dividay, which is the Dutch Institute for Vulnerability Disclosure. Really cool people. If you haven't come across them, definitely worth looking up. I help run a Discord community server for CTFs. I put in the committee member for Hack Thursday twice. Very keen on that one. I do have a bit of a goon addiction for conferences and helping out tomorrow as well. So say hi if you see me. And I'm also quite a keen runner. And that will generally end up in conversation if you talk to me at any point in time. So when we're talking about kind of the journey that I've had for moving from insurance to Infosec, the insurance kind of fraud stuff isn't always about crash for cash, as you can see in the right-hand image, which is what a lot of people think of when they think of insurance frauds. A lot of what I was actually dealing with has parallels with cybersecurity, because what I dealt with a lot with was identity theft and serious organized crime groups who would pretend to be someone. So someone would take out an insurance policy pretending to be Rosie, but they'd have not Rosie's car, and no one Rosie knows is the second driver on it, who would then pretend that, Rosie said it's fine for me to sort out the insurance through her. Go talk to her if you want to ask any questions if someone's been pulled over at the side of the roads. Some of these groups as well use the insurance policies to stop the cars from being pulled over while they were committing other crimes, running drugs, burgling houses, trafficking people as well. You don't think about it when in the terms of insurance being something that actually comes through on. But that was actually my life for quite a while. I did that for nearly 8 years and investigating through. My journey to cybersecurity kind of started while I was doing the fraud work, not quite in a galaxy far, far away. I am based in Glasgow. So I actually found this guy about 2 miles from my house, well known to a lot of people in the industry. And we made friends, found on Twitter, and started talking about things to do with victim support. Because I was dealing with a lot of victims with the insurance fraud for the identity theft. So I started to look a little further into different help support networks for people, which are always really important. And I take through because there's such parallels between the insurance, people who've been affected by insurance frauds, as well as the people who've been affected by scams and phishing. So the Tell 2 over Brew was something was being run by the City of London Police and Durham Police, where they talked about telling 2 people. So if you hear about a scam, you tell 2 people, you hope that they tell 2 people, and eventually that kind of cascades through the entirety of the UK. And being able to keep people aware of, this thing is weird. You've seen a few tweets lately from some fairly well-known people in the industry saying, hey, I fell for this. You should know about it. We're not all invulnerable to it. But the advice as well kind of goes through for the take 5 when we give it to people. If you see something in that's looking to be urgent, you take 5. These people who are, looking at it going, that's a really odd request. Why would we possibly reply to that, or, building that up? So always advice that we'll give from a cybersecurity point of view is just take 5. Take your time. It comes with all the problem solving you do as well. Just take a couple of minutes. Don't panic and just have a wee think about it. I wanted to experiment with something. I've got a Slido poll where you think I may have ended up in the cybersecurity industry after meeting Mr. Scott McGrady as to how I ended up working through. So I'll give it a minute or so if people can have a wee scan. It's a safe QR code, I swear. Hopefully it'll work through for you. I just thought I'd have a little fun with it. and hopefully it'll update itself. Press gang after drinking. Kind of curious as to who's gone through and voted through on that. Got 2 people. Quite curious as to no one trusts me enough to be someone has trusted me enough to be a man who hacks, and nobody thinks you go into the industry for love or money. No. Oh. I feel like I'm impacting my own poll results by just talking through the different titles and the Cool. So 10 results. We've got press ganged after drinking. I'm a man who hacks. Love nor money. Not winning that one at all. So to kind of talk through for them, how did I actually end up through? I didn't quite end up in the industry through love. End up in Scotland through love. I followed my wife who wanted to be a school teacher about 15 years ago. And then that kind of progressed on where I ran out of money. And then ended up doing the work in insurance. So I started off in customer services for them, moved to an admin role. From there, I moved into kind of, when I was looking at the admin stuff, they had a brokerage that the company had set up that I was working for. And I went in there and I started to find a lot of fraudulent documents, things that didn't look quite right. And as a result, I got the notice of the fraud manager who asked me, said, "Hey, we've got a job going. Do you want to apply for it? And go through because you've been making so many referrals through ourselves." So went on and started to do that for just under 8 years. But yeah, that was definitely the driving force for me. My first pay came in when I got the insurance job. I think I had about 50 quid left in my bank account. So yeah, it was the insurance side of things that actually pushed me through onto it. I can honestly say I am definitely not a man who hacks. It wasn't something I really came across until just before I went into the cybersecurity. I just was ignorant of the terms that were being used. I would have always thought of, people who are hackers who are committing crimes. No, people who are committing crimes are criminals. It's not that the hackers can be good people and bad. So we have our whites and our greys and our blacks. I was press ganged, so people can give themselves a wee pat on the back. I was press ganged after a heavy night out. People may recognise the gathering of people. You'll meet some of them tomorrow as well. During the pandemic, the beer farmer started up the Infosec happy hour. And because I knew Scott, I got invited along. They were just wanting to gather as many people as possible. And then I got to know people who were in the industry and started to kind of chat from there. And as I kind of learned more, yourselves were all here today at a conference. So I started looking at conferences and thinking about, maybe attending. But for me, my first proper interaction with a conference was a text message going, "Hey, do you fancy helping out?" And thus started the addiction to gooning. So I helped out in September 2020. Got a text message going, "Hey, can you help out?" I was planning on going to conference anyway. In the end, I ended up modding Slack and having a look through and just helping out in the background where I could. At B-Sides Newcastle, which I helped out with for a couple of years. Really good people. It's on in September again, so please join in. From B-Sides Newcastle, I then ended up being a speaker and gooning at BeerCon 2. So that was run by the beer farmers who were wanting it aimed at rookies. So Rise of the Rookie, got to speak and help out at it and start talking about the connections and parallels between insurance frauds and cybersecurity. But that was a real kind of baptism of fire in going, hey, helping out. But I highly recommend anyone doing it. It's always good to ask for help and ask to be, if you can be of any help as well. And I finished out that first year in 2020 going to Conant, which was primarily focused around the open source intelligence talks and taking part in their own CTF as well, which kind of brings me on to another area that people always talk about, trying to get into the industry, talking about careers, and people saying, hey, just start looking around and poking around at these. So when we talk about CTFs, there's loads of them out there. There's one that started a couple of minutes ago. Hopefully people are watching this and not too distracted by the CTF just yet. I'm kind of hoping to get on it in the car on the way down after the talk. But the first CTF I ever did was actually with Trace Labs, which, if people haven't heard about it, is related to open source intelligence and searching for missing people. As shows the industry is quite small, I ended up on a team with three South Africans, and we came sixth out of 100 and something teams in my first effort for it, having to communicate with them through using Discord and going through. I did make an attempt to hack the box, but at the time their sign up register required about 20 pages worth of notes and getting in. So that was a bit something that I wasn't quite able to manage at that time in my career, because I was just starting out with no cybersecurity experience. So I moved on to Try Hack Me, which I love as a method to go through and start to learn. It kind of came around the time around when they do their Advent to Cyber every year. So I thought, right, I convinced a couple of friends, hey, give this a go, Try Hack Me, we'll help you, we'll be out there, we'll be grand. So what I ended up doing was sorting out with these two lads. We got Leonard in the centre, and Scott, as you've seen already. That picture was only taken last week. The three of us have met for the very first time in 3 years of knowing each other. And we ended up creating a Discord server in order to facilitate me basically being able to reach out to them going, hey, help, please, I'm stuck. I've had a go, but can you please come and give me a hand? I'm stuck here. So that's how we started out. We started running a CTF server we call the Adorably Persistent Team. Need to be careful because we generally refer to it as APT, which is going to cause a few concerns when we're out in public and people are listening into us having conversations. So the three of us have been running that for the last 3 years, just started out purely as a, hey, let's give this a go and give a venue, a location for people to be able to actually go and have a chat and work through CTF challenges. So we tend to take part in all the Trace Labs stuff that goes on, as well as a few other bits and pieces. But that's really helped kind of meet people and talk to people, and you have your conferences and CTFs connect to the conferences or their outside ones, and can be really good and interesting way to kind of talk, and you meet people who are in different jobs as well. Some of them will be hiring managers, some of them won't, but they might hear something that's going. So it's definitely worth going through. I list rooms I've completed on Try Hack Me on my CV. I've listed the Trace Lab stuff. It's of interest for people. Speaking of people who've helped me and who really do like to help others get into the industry when they're starting out their careers and supportive, the beer farmers have to be said, because they did the Infosec Happy Hour. They ran that during the pandemic. They do the BeerCon talks, conferences. They had the Rise of the Rookie for BeerCon 2. They've done them every year since as well, and they'd had one prior to that in BeerCon 1. So it's definitely something that they're very keen on supporting, and they've been very supportive of me as well. From there, with the BeerCon 2, they provided us with mentors. Someone in particular for me was Dave McKenzie, who was working for an MSSP at the time. And he was my mentor for my talk, and was quite supportive, helping out, listen to my talk. And in the end, I actually got an interview for the company he was working for as a SOC analyst. And that stemmed from kicking around at conferences, going to these things, CTFs and things like that. Was quite supportive, and worked out in my favor. Someone else who's really good, and you'll see him tomorrow. He'll be making his way up early doors, so provide him with all the tea and coffee he's after, because he will be coming through, is James Bohr. Who spent some time with myself and somebody else who were in between jobs at the time, talk about threat modeling. And it went to show that there's so much community out there and people want to help each other up. And it was quite good. And there was CTG Intelligence as well, who are run by Pelham. Reach out, Pelham's awesome. And they had me along into panels just to talk about the experience so far. With regard to kind of stepping into the industry. Pelham's good people, so definitely reach out and say hi. Not sure if they're going to be around tomorrow or not, but certainly worth a reach out on Twitter and whatnot. Certs. It's one of these things that a lot of people will argue over. where, people should have certs going in for jobs, or you should get them when you go in. For me, well, it wasn't quite a cert. It was something that I was nudged towards doing before I started out, with regard to plural sites. So not a cert, but what I did what I'd been nudged towards by David was to do the KQL course that they were providing. KQL is what the query language that Microsoft uses. So if you want to be a SOC analyst and you think the company is going to be using KQL, consider this a hack for it. Go and do the KQL course that's on Pluralsight. Doesn't take that long. It'll give you a good step up. If you've got experience with SQL before, you might feel it runs backwards to that. But it'll work out for you. We've got the Microsoft certifications as well, which you'll do. I've done a couple of those. They are quite tricky, but you will get there. Through them, some of them are quite interesting to go through, and certainly help from a career changer point of view. Help put the basics in that you wouldn't necessarily have had, but in comparison to people who've come in with degrees and things like that. You've also got the CompTIA ones as well. A lot of people like to do those. Not taking any of them myself, so I can't really comment on them, but a lot of people put up a lot of faith in them. And you can't talk about certs in cybersecurity without talking about USCP. Offensive security on more blue team, but it's certainly something that people are always looking out for when it comes to certifications and things like that. But it means they're expensive. Get an employer to pay for it. Maybe see about that, and pushing on from there. The theme to my talk, which I hope I've managed to do over the last couple of slides, has been to show that I've had a hand up to help, and it's always important to be able to put the hand out to help others as well. People will help because we want things to work out for each other. It's not about closing the door on people. We do talk about there being a skill shortage, and I suppose it's an argument that happens a lot, but I'm not really sure it's so much a skill shortage in the industry as something that's a time shortage for people. You don't have the people who have the skills that you need to hire, but at the time when companies tend to be able to try and hire someone, it tends to be at a point where they need someone to come in and hit the ground running. Companies at the end of the day need to turn a profit. They need to be able to have someone who can come in and be productive in the shortest space of time as possible, which then leads to a skill shortage because people haven't been given the time to train up. I've been lucky. I started out in the cybersecurity industry with a company who said, hey, you're a nice person, we can teach you the rest. And those opportunities seem to be fairly rare, but if you get the chance to come across one of them, or you hear that someone's talking about it, grab that with both hands, because it's certainly the way forward that you want. Somewhere that has the time to be able to train people in, is far and few between. Just keep the door open for each other. No, cybersecurity has a really bad reputation for people gatekeeping, people holding the door closed on others, stopping them from getting through. You get it sometimes where people have been new to the industry and they feel threatened by those that may know more about the ins and outs, trying to hold them back, to try and go, hey, we need the door to be kept open for people. We need to be able to have that open door to allow people in, like people like myself come in, move from insurance into SOC analysts. You think, right, how does that work out? But actually it worked out quite well. It was the same investigation techniques, just on a different topic, which then can be taught to people. So people from outside the industry will have plenty to add in. This is question times. I don't know if people have many questions for me. You can catch me at pre-sites tonight. I will have stickers, that APT, nice logo. I have a few of those kicking around on me, so I'll have those. So if you want one, give us a shout. I'll be one of the staff as well, hyperlink, so please say hi. Drop my Twitter handle and LinkedIn as well. And these are the names of the people, if you want to take a screen grab, who've helped me along my way and are really good people, good humans. Reach out to them, say hi, ask questions of me. It's people have helped me through in my journey. I'm more than happy to help put others through on theirs.